Welcome to Signs of Life, exploring survival of consciousness. Brought to you by Forever Family Foundation, on the web at foreverfamilyfoundation.org.
I call your name, the echo is haunting, the echo is always the same. I call your name, the echo is haunting, an echo can never be changed, so I call your name, your name.
And welcome to The Gathering on Signs of Life Radio. I'm Bob Ginsberg. We're here with Tom and Melissa Gould. And tonight we have a special guest host with us, Marta Kane. Some of you that are as old as I am might remember her from shows like Lost in Space. And I said I probably watched her in My Three Sons and Leave It to Beaver and Wagon Train and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and stuff. And now here she is. Interestingly enough, I've only found out recently, I saw a clip that in one episode of Wagon Train, she played a psychic. So that was a foretelling. But what did you think when you played it? Did you give any thought to, did you think psychics were real?
Of course.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did. I had always felt intuitive. And so it wasn't a real stretch for me. The problem the show, what it centered around was the fear that other people had about the psychic person and their ability to see into the future or to see things about others that no one else knew about. And
it's still the same today.
It's still the same. Well, the show ended up having the people who were so hateful and afraid asking forgiveness, that they had been so difficult and so much against this young woman, me, and they were trying to get the demons out by baptizing her in the water and drowning her, and so it. I understood the fear. I understood why people don't like other people who are different or have an openness about them that they can relate to the universe in a different way than others.
Yeah, Bob shared that link with me, and I watched it, and I was pleased that the show itself was very sympathetic, and that you were the good guy in the film.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
So as our listeners know, this is our gathering show where we field questions that you may have emailed to us or want to call in with a question that you might have, or you wanted to share something. And the number here is 888-627-6008. And we'll get right to the questions. Thank you, Tom. Let's see. Here's a question that came in. It says, when mediums receive information from spirit, how large of a role does interpretation play? Is there any similarity between interpreting dreams and interpreting pieces of information from spirit? I think, mediumship is all about interpretation, right? I mean, the medium's getting information or a signal, and the hard part is not getting the signal. The hard part is putting it into language, that fits the information that they're getting. I mean, that's why sometimes you could put 2 or 3 mediums right next to each other, and they're all getting the same person in spirit, and they're all getting the information, but they're giving it out in totally different ways, So, is it, I don't know, similarity between interpreting that and interpreting dreams? What would you say
I
about
don't know if I would think of it the same as the dreams. That's a good question. I know for the mediums, what we witnessed at our last grief retreat when we all got to sit in on the group reading, and we saw how the medium Connie was giving information and talking about her sign for certain things. And it stayed consistent when she moved about the room, when she was trying to identify a certain area. Her interpretation or her own personal signs, I thought were kind of unique, but she must have worked those out with spirit. But as far as in dreams, I don't know. I've had so many books I do have books on our bookshelf about dream interpretations, but I kind of put those aside because I really didn't think that it would be the same for everybody, that one would need a reference book. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I read a book that talked about dream interpretations and said that very thing, that they're unique to the dreamer. There isn't a blanket, this means that, and all of that sort of thing, which, as Melissa alluded to, was when mediums read, they get these signs, and if they see a sign, they know that she's supposed to say one thing or another. And I stop on the word interpretation because I don't think a medium should be interpreting what they're telling. And in fact, I've had many mediums who I've talked to who say that early on, they tried to make sense of what they were seeing and realized that they were going down the wrong path until they found out what it was actually that the sitter was keying in on. And so the best mediums have told me that what they do is they don't question, they get their sign and they deliver what is told to them, or they deliver what they see as is. And if it makes sense to the sitter, then they can move on. And if it doesn't make sense, then they can ask for more signs. But to try to think, oh, I'm seeing a military man or something, my uncle was in the Navy, so, oh, you must be in the Navy. And they go, well, no, not the Navy. But it means something else to the sitter. So, yeah, I think it's all about just delivering what's given and not trying to interpret it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and the that's when mediums, we see them often get into trouble when they use their own conscious interpretations instead of just one of the mediums said, "Give it like you get it," or "Give it like you get it." So just say it, and the sitter will understand. Going back to dreams, of course, if somebody has a dream visitation,
Right.
there's no interpretation needed, because they're seeing their loved one, they're talking to their loved one, they're feeling them, they're hugging them, they're smelling them, and so forth. But as we're talking about so-called regular dreams, and that's where all the interpretation comes in, and that could be really difficult.
Bob, I know we've talked about some of the dream visitations that we have had. How about you, Marta? Have you had any dream visits that you can recall throughout your life?
Oh, yes, I do. A major one when after my husband of 43 years passed, I was in terrible grief, as we all are. And one night I dreamt that he was coming towards me, and he was so loving and kind. And all of a sudden, he became this bright light that I had read about people who had the death experience and had come back, that there was this light that was so healing and loving, and it's almost ineffable. Words can't describe truly how I felt, the peace and the calm. And I thought, he's trying to tell me that's where he is. That's what he's feeling. That's, that he's in that space, and not to worry about him and not to feel such deep despair. And it helped. It helped a great deal because I felt that it was sent by him. And I mean, I've had visitations from my parents. I've had, I think they're visitations. I mean, I've dreamt about them, I even the other night dreamt about Bob's wife, Fran, when she was young, and I had never met her, but she was beautiful. Yeah, I know that. I mean, I had seen photos, but I thought we were both young, and she was so vivacious and just wonderful, and I was so tickled that I woke up thinking I dreamt about Fran. How wonderful, because I'd heard so many great things about her, and how charming and smart and spunky, and that's exactly how she was. And she was maybe 18 in my dream.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So let's go to a caller before we forget. We have a caller from Mexico. Brian is on the line. Hi, Brian.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
How is everyone doing tonight?
Pretty good. And you?
Yes.
It's been a tiring week. I'm glad it's almost over with. So my question, I'm currently working with a medium to develop my own abilities. I started to have some phenomena happen to me when I was a young child, and I didn't really feel very open to talk about it with people in my family, with friends. But as I've gotten older, these experiences have been happening more and more, and I've begun to kind of recognize I have some mediumistic ability. I've been trying to develop that, but the mentality, the feedback I get from people in my family and my friend circle, even from my spouse, is very negative. It's like, I get accused of devil worship and just all kinds of things. And I'm kind of curious. I mean, I've heard other mediums talk about this topic, but I'm curious as to how you think it's best to kind of cope with that, because to be very honest, it's felt so isolating sometimes.
You need us, Brian. You need to hang out with us.
Yeah, I mean, Brian.
I misheard you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, I misheard you. Initially, I thought you said you need sex, Brian.
That must have been Tom.
Oh. Okay.
No, I mean what you're saying, Brian, is something that we've heard many times over these many years. People have this bias if it's something that they can't perceive with their known physical senses, that it's something to be feared or judged or labeled, or some otherworldly explanation that's tied to something dark, which we know is not the case. It's just normal. So, I mean, there's plenty of people, and it's changed a lot, even over the last 20 some odd years that we've been doing this. There's a lot more openness to it, and you just have to learn to embrace these abilities that you have, as opposed to questioning it or listening to what other people have to say about it. There are plenty of good places to go for mediumship development. I know there are a lot of mediums that have been certified by our foundation that offer such classes. I'm sure you've read, a bunch of books on the subject. So, I mean, what have you been doing? Have you been doing like readings for friends and family? Or?
So I actually was reading professionally several years ago. I had trained with a medium who was previously certified with Forever Family Foundation. And at the time, my spouse, my former spouse, was very reluctant when I opened my practice and started giving readings. It was always about the of the money. And after a while, I was like, I felt my energy so drained by that. I dreaded even hearing the phone ring sometimes. And I kind of fell away from it. But over the last 2 years or so, Spirit has been kind of pulling me back into it. And I'm actually, I've actually been participating in development activities with Joseph Shield over the past year, which has been really, really helpful. But I think sometimes still it feels very isolating. I mean, basically everybody in my social circle, thinks I'm just full of it. It's like,
Right. Well, people think we're full of it too, but we follow the evidence, and that's all you could do. I mean, we can't change the way a lot of people think, which is kind of evident in today's world, right? Outside of the stuff we're talking about. Tom, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, and you realize that when you get into this situation where you have a conduit with Spirit, that there is an awful lot that's open to you, and what I've heard from many mediums is they rely on their spirit guides to present to them what is needed. Now that you're available to the spirit world, they will help you. And I think one of the first places to turn in this very situation is, Spirit, help me. What can I do about my isolation? And doors may open. You might find sympathetic ears through that.
Please keep at it. Please keep pursuing it, because what you do is very valuable to people.
well, and I was just going to add, it's been really interesting because as I've been working with Joe Shield and some of his other students, some of the people that I've lost in the spirit world are like in life, they were adamantly like, this is all evil. It's witchcraft. It's devil worship, and they're the ones who are coming through in spirit. So
That's
I've
funny.
been a little bit thrown by that too.
Yeah. Oh,
My father was of that ilk. He didn't think he was. I don't know if he thought it was evil or not, but he just didn't. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't discuss it. He didn't think there was anything to it. And after he passed, he's been one of the strongest communicators that I've had. So I've found that true. The people who did not believe and then suddenly, wow, here it is, are the ones most anxious to share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
well, thanks, Brian. Appreciate you calling.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Stay in touch with us, please.
Be well. I had another question. This is really something that, it's more suited to a medium, which we're not, but her daughter passed away in February of 2020, and she says, I'm wondering if she still watches over her son Romeo and can hear my communication, or has she gone on to a higher relationship? We can't talk about specifics, right? But in general terms, we could say that our loved ones do watch over us. They're not every minute of the day, but they're aware of times that significant times and when we need them. And can they hear you? They're entities of thought and energy, and when you send your thoughts to them, we believe that yes, they can hear you. They also ask if they've gone on to a higher relationship or a higher plane of existence, and that's possible too, right? Because we find that sometimes a lot of people have these signs and communications wane as our years go by, and it's logical to think that they're doing a lot of different stuff there, and they're moving to a higher frequency, and they get further, a frequency that and vibration that's a lot higher, at a much faster pace than the physical dense world. So it's more and more difficult to communicate with this physical world as they progress. But that's the key point. They're always progressing. Right? That's a good thing, right?
Yes,
But they're
absolutely.
not going away necessarily. The bond that we have with one another when we love is, as our retreats say, it never dies. Love never dies. So I heard in your question that well, it was a young child who lost his mother, and will she move on, and will the child go through life without that kind of spiritual guidance, if you will? And the answer is no. The love bond will not break. And in fact, when that child finally passes over, hopefully decades and decades from now, his mother will be there to greet him. And that, yeah, that's pretty much a given from all that we have heard and seen. And
Right. Melissa, you forwarded an account that one of the foundation members, wrote to us. Did you want to read that, or you want me to read it?
Oh, I'd like you to read it, Bob. I heard the story and I thought it was something suitable for our program.
Okay. So she writes that I'd like to share an incident that took place during a trip to France a few weeks ago. My husband and I planned this trip to spend quality time with my aunt, my mother's sister, whom we had not seen since 2018 when mom passed. We also brought to her two small urns containing some of the remains of my parents who had met and married in France in 1955. Although they raised their family in New York, the family's connection to France remained very strong. Our itinerary took us through the Catholic pilgrimage city of Lourdes, known to many as place of miracles. It welcomes millions of visitors and pilgrims from all over the world each year. Although I'm not religious, I'm quite spiritual and felt that this would be a very interesting place to experience. We arrived in this beautiful town and parked on a nearby street to the cathedral and shrine. As I got out of the car, I picked up my cell phone, which was on the seat next to me. It was in sleep mode. As soon as my feet touched the pavement, my phone woke up and a close-up picture of my mom was suddenly staring back at me. It seemed my phone had randomly chosen this picture out of my library of 47,000 stored images and was suggesting it as a wallpaper suggestion with the current date and time appearing above her image. I knew I had not touched any buttons on the phone that would have prompted such a suggestion. My aunt, who was immediately behind me, saw me freeze as I stared at my phone. She said, "Why is that picture of your mother on your phone?" I have never seen it before. We all had tears in our eyes. I barely recognized the image myself, as it was the older photo I had not seen in many years. My aunt's friend, who was also with us, exclaimed, "Why are you all so surprised? You're in Lourdes, the place of miracles." I texted a dear friend later that day recounting the story along with the picture. She pointed out something I had not noticed in the photo. My mother was wearing a blouse prominently decorated in a scallop shell print. She did a little research and discovered that the scallop shell is a Christian symbol of protection and pilgrimage. I have been fortunate to have received many signs in my life, but this is among one of the strongest. In fact, I do not believe my phone randomly chose this picture. The timing and location would not have been more relevant, could not have been more relevant. I truly feel my mother made it very clear that her spirit was with us on this trip.
yeah,
I heard that story from her yesterday, our friend Liz, and I was blown away. And I don't know if anyone watching tonight can see this wonderful picture of her mother, which Liz herself said, that decades old, that photo. And for it to pop up in that moment in the land of miracles sounded pretty miraculous to me.
Yeah, and that's one of those after death communications that we say doesn't leave any doubt in the recipient's mind. Like they just know that that was mom, and so those are very compelling and meaningful.
It's that knowing. You just have the knowing, and you don't, it's fun to share the story, but you don't need to share the story because you just know it. It's real.
I try and tell people who are in grief to look for things, to be open to it, because the synchronicities that you encounter, because they're there.
Yeah.
It's just that you don't see them. A lot of people go, "Oh well, that's nothing," but they're there, and that happens to me quite often. So I'm always thankful and I welcome it.
Yeah, exactly. And we always encourage the people at our retreats to make a journal, and every time you see something like that, write it down. Because a lot of times, oh, it's a coin here or a feather there or a bird or something, and you just dismiss it as coincidence or just another thing. And but if you put a journal and then you months later go back and look at your journal, you'll start to see a pattern, and you'll say, "Wow, there's too much going on here to be just coincidence." So that's a good thought.
Yeah, Mara and I were talking a little bit about grief, which is, something that we at the foundation talk about a lot. And Marta just lost her. She lives in Pacific Palisades, and she just lost her home and her daughter's home and her granddaughter's home. Everything is gone. It's just ashes. And as everybody knows, it was a massive, massive, fire, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of homes and people that were affected. And I got to know some of these people there, and grief is palpable. It's kind of life changing. So um, the thing is, we forget that it's not the loss of a loved one, but it's still grief. I mean, parts of you, have been, taken away. So, I mean, Marty, you've experienced. I've talked about this before on my own situation, but you've experienced, loss of loved ones, and you've experiencing this, and I know how much you suffer from this. Is there any comparison between the two, would you say? Between the grief of losing somebody?
Well, I think
Yeah.
the grief of losing somebody is by far greater than this, because you know that a lot of what you've lost can be replaced. It's those little things that keep popping into my head, that I have to acknowledge and then let them go. I mean, I'm adopted, and the woman who sent me here from Norway, Tante Marta, from whom I took my name, gave me a little locket, a little enameled heart, and I wore it for years. And I just happened to have taken it off and put it in a box. And as I was leaving, I forgot it. But it's, people say, well, it's just stuff. And in fact, I understand that. It's true. My daughters and our pets got out, and we survived, and we have each other and we have our friends. But it's those, you go through grief. You go through the stages of grief that I went, it was somewhat similar that I went through with losing my husband, because it's sort of a roller coaster. One day you're okay, but the next day you feel so sad and so low and depressed about this or that comes into your head, that pops into your head, and you have the memories of what you lost, but you have to say, it's okay. I know that I lost it. I have the memory of it, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing, like Lady Macbeth said, what's done is done, cannot be undone. I mean, except that your hands aren't bloodied like hers, but you feel there is a loss, there is a grief, and the grief is of the memories, my parents' things, my my picture albums, all of the wonderful times I spent there. with my friends and family.
And to make it worse, with her Scandinavian roots, she loves the cold.
I'm in Florida.
And she's in Florida now. But it is what it is. You got to
What's
adapt.
done is done.
Can I ask you another question, Marta? Thinking of you mentioning that you were adopted, do you think when your turn comes to cross over, you'll recognize your birth mother?
I actually met her.
Oh.
I met her and my siblings. And when I took my adopted parents to Finland to meet her, and it was just an astonishing experience. I was pregnant at the time with my daughter, and so I was very emotional about everything. And I mean, not that I wouldn't have been had I not been pregnant, but my mother, my adopted mother, was probably more touched by all of the experience. She's the one who kept crying, breaking down and crying. And I know that I never met my birth father. Now, I had a vision of him. I was I had a house that was being built, and I was staying in a rental, and I was washing the dishes, and my cat was sitting on the stove, getting warm, I guess, from the pilot light. And all of a sudden, my cat sort of stood up, and I turned around, and there was a man in a uniform, and he had little glasses on and wavy hair, not unlike mine, and that scared me. I said, "Whoever you are, just, go away." I turned around back to the dishes. I turned around again, and he was still there, and he was smiling from ear to ear. And then I wasn't afraid anymore. And I thought, this is my father, my birth father.
Wow.
So, I mean, I had never seen him. I'd never seen photos of him, but I just assumed that this man behind me was my father, and then he was gone. But it was an odd. I mean, I'd never had that kind of visitation before of someone that I didn't know, or I had never seen before.
You've had more experiences than we have. So maybe you could do the show with her.
Yeah.
I've had a lot. And I think part of it is that I'm an actor, and actors that we're open. We keep an open heart all the time because we absorb what's around us so that we can express it to other people. Their love, their what's in their heart, what's in their mind, and try and interpret for them, and help them understand about themselves and about life.
Wow.
Okay. Let's look at some of these other questions. Look at this one. I was adopted and never knew my birth parents or family. Will any of them who are on the other side greet me when I get there? And how will I recognize them? I think the connection is always there. They gave birth to you. So I can't imagine that you won't see them.
And when you say, how will I recognize them? Well, Marty just said so. She'd never met the man, but she just knew. There's a knowing.
Yeah.
And when you get to the other side after you pass, you will know who everyone is.
Yes, I think so. I believe so. There's a wonderful Chinese proverb or a story about that we're connected with our loved ones and our friends by a thin red string, and that adopted children have this even a stronger string to their adoptive parents. And I just wanted to say that because the parents that adopted me were my parents, and I certainly will know them, they were the most incredible people. After my father died, let me know if I'm going on too much.
No, please.
After my father died at the age of 98, my mother was 94 at the time. I kept hearing these strange electrical sounds, and I went to Ireland with some friends and my husband, and I kept hearing them, and it was like at night going, and I couldn't quite describe it, except that it sounded electrical. My mother called me or I called her, and I started telling her. She said, "Wait, I have to tell you something. I keep hearing these sounds. It sounds like electricity." And we both think it was my father, because once my mother passed, it stopped completely. But I would be hiking and at sunset, and all of a sudden light would surround me. And I'm sure it was my father. He was so strong. They were married 70 years. And man, he wanted to tell my mother that he was there. And when my father did pass in the hospital, when my mother and I were there in the room at 3 a.m. in the morning, and she put her head onto my father's forehead, because I told her it was time, because I saw his blood pressure going up and down. So she put her head to his forehead, and all of a sudden she looked up with this huge surprise. And I said, what happened? And she said, "I just saw his whole life go through my body." And my mother was, she was a pragmatist.
Yeah.
But that connection, man, it was strong. And I know they're together now.
Yeah.
Together. And I feel them. I feel them visit.
Yeah, and what we touched on a little bit there about the letter that came through, we're talking about adoption. When I married Melissa, she already had a daughter who was 3 at the time, and then we went on and had a son. And I can tell you that I have raised this lovely woman since she was 3 years old, and she, adopted, step, all of those words mean nothing to me, because she is my daughter. I love her as much as I love my son. That it's all part of the family, and so yeah, it's all about the love. And
all about the love, yes, and the love never goes, as your foundation says. The love never dies, never.
Here's another question. When my husband was here in the physical world, he could not read my mind. Alicia doesn't think so. But so our question is, can he now read it from the spirit world?
Uh-oh.
That's a good question.
That is a good question. Well, I mean, communication on the other side is not verbal. It's
Thoughts.
Telepathic.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can turn that off or not. If you have to physically throw your thoughts to somebody else, or if their thoughts are just available like an open book. I'm not sure where it goes with that. But let's, for the sake of keeping everybody calm, no, they can't just read your mind unless you're actively trying to communicate and thinking about them.
I like that you said that, because I recall when I was working daily and driving I was working with young students, and on my long drives, I would think about my dad at the time who had passed, and I remember asking him in my mind questions and getting a response. I always noted it was sort of coming in on the left side. So, as Tom said, I think if I'm directing a thought, as I was then to my dad, I was getting a response. But in general, I would not think he'd really be interested in my thoughts day to day. But maybe I don't know if you go in and identify them. I don't know.
Well, we always talk, when you're talking about meditation, talking about silencing the mind, because there's a constant chatter in your mind that we call the monkey brain that's always telling you, well, you have to be somewhere. Oh gosh, I gotta go to the grocery. All of this sort of this monkey brain chatter, and in meditation, you want to turn that chatter off. So, in answer to the question, can spirit read your mind? I don't think they want to be listening to that monkey chatter either. So they're not going to go in there if it's not something that's directed towards them.
And yet we believe that those in the spirit world, I mean, they don't have bodies and they don't have voice boxes. They have they have a mind and they have consciousness, and everything they do is by thought, and that's how they communicate with each other. By thought.
Right.
And that's why there's an absence of ego, and there's no incentive to lie or have greed or anything like that, because everybody knows what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Imagine if that happened, in this world. So, if they can read each other's minds, and we're consciousness here, that's how mediumship takes place, right?
Yeah.
Communicating mind to mind communication. Like Tom said, I don't think that. Oh, by the way, her husband contacted me last night, and he doesn't like what she was thinking about last night. But I don't think it's like that. I just think that certain times, especially when we're feeling exceptionally sad, or there's something important going on, there's some sort of conduit that opens up and they get through. It's more likely that they're putting a thought into our mind than reading our mind. So
Yeah.
any sense.
That's
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So let's see. When someone gets a medium reading and their loved one does not come through, is it a connection issue with the medium as opposed to the sitter? So here we want to blame it on the medium. What do we want to blame on the sitter? But I mean, we think that there has to be a synchronicity among the three parties: the person in spirit, the medium, and the sitter.
Mm-hmm.
Something's out of whack in any one of the three, the process, may come to a halt. So I don't think we can say it's because of any one thing. You agree with that?
Yeah, a lot of times I think it's that it's all about frequency, and you've got a medium that's at a certain frequency and a spirit that is not really on the same wavelength as the medium, and I'm sure that's possible. Maybe the sitter or the spirit doesn't want to come through that medium for whatever reason. That's probably one of the hardest questions we get, because obviously if it's a love connection again, and you want to let your loved one know that you're still around and you're okay and you still love, but you're going to let the medium get in the way of that? I don't know. I really don't know.
Here's an interesting question that came in from Ajit, who writes, I had a question. This is concerning what skeptical physicist Sean Carroll had to say a while ago in a debate. If the afterlife is real, why does it only barely make itself obvious to us, like with the occasional hearing about a near-death experience or synchronicities, and then once in a while after-death communication or cardinal sighting? And why is it that whenever a message comes back from it, whether it's through an NDE or a medium, it's always some platitude, like love is really important, rather than something more jarring, like an immense scientific insight or something about the future? What would you say to a question like this? Yes, I know it's two questions, but they are both very related.
Yeah. Well, first of all, sometimes it is scientific. Apparently, Einstein dreamed his theory of relativity. He woke up from a dream, and there it was, and he wrote it down, and he was able to understand it, which is his genius. But he doesn't feel like he discovered it. He feels like it was given to him. So yes, spirit can give things that will be a boon to mankind. The other thing to remember, though, is we are here on this physical plane as to learn something, to help develop our soul's progression. And if spirit were constantly on our shoulder, like Jiminy Cricket telling us, whoa, don't do that, or oh, you should go this way or that, when are you going to learn? You're just going to be led around by the nose, and then your life will be over, and well, what did you learn? I learned to follow my spirit. Well, spirit doesn't want you to follow them. Spirit wants you to be happy. Spirit wants you to continue your soul, and yes, even it's the platitude, but spirit wants you to love, experience love, and that. I often think that one of the boons to the physical world that we can give back to spirit is that very thing, the love. I feel that we are love miners, if you will, not, digging for love. And the more love that we create and share, and that it feeds the energy of the universe.
I have two thoughts about this. One, we have to realize that people in spirit, their overriding goal is to give evidence to their loved one that they still exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's not through great wisdom, or scientific discovery. It's mundane things that only the sitter would know to give that proof. Channelers, as opposed to mental mediums in the past, have been able to glean some of these discoveries and jarring things, but you don't see that so much today. Also, it's not only occasional. The mainstream is not aware of it. But, there's 4 decades of research on reincarnation. There's near-death experience research has been going on now for 50, 60 years. After-death communications is studying. Mediumship has been, in controlled blinded, studies, and that's been going on for decades. And the point is that there's an overwhelming amount of evidence, and when you step back and you instead of explaining away each individual discipline of research, if you step back and you examine everything on the whole as a whole, survival of consciousness makes the most sense. It becomes logical. So there is quite a lot of the evidence is very, very deep, and it's true. The other thing also is, and look, when we're evaluating mediums, one of our pet peeves is, that your mother loves you. Okay, it's in 99 out of 100 times it's a true statement, but it's not evidential. Doesn't mean the medium shouldn't say it if it's true. It's just that we're looking for these specific, obscure, facts that you can't explain elsewhere. So I don't know if that helped Ajit, but that's our story. We're going to stick to it.
I like that story.
Yeah. All right. So we have here, you often hear that our loved ones in spirit look out for our well-being and protect us, but bad things still happen to us. Why?
That's life. We're here to experience it fully.
Yeah, that's part of the learning experience, that we can't understand why it can be so horrible at times, but we will understand that when we get to the other side and see how much we have progressed. And not to add insult to injury, apparently there's a soul contract that we signed on for it before we got here. You're going to get this here, this, and this is going to happen to you, and this is going to happen to you, and you go, yeah, sure, I'll go, and then you get down here and you go, what the heck? I agreed to this? I don't understand.
And also, it may be a false assumption that those in the spirit world have that control and ability to provide this overwhelming protection for us. They may be able to influence us in certain directions and put thoughts in our head or make that cardinal appear before us, I don't know that I mean, they certainly don't appear to have the ability to change the world, on a macro level. I mean, just look
Right.
around us. So I think that sometimes we think that we become, what's the word?
All powerful,
Yeah, all powerful, omnificent, right?
Yeah.
omnipotent, or omniscient. You know all and you be all.
Well, you get the picture. So,
I don't think that, in my own personal feeling is that they change your world because, as Tom says, because they love you and you love them. But to change the course of your life by you thinking that they're going to arrange for something good to happen or take away something bad, I don't think that is going to be terribly important, for one thing, because you, as Tom said and Melissa said, you have to live. You are going to have difficult times in your life, but what love has done is it has given you the strength to move forward, the strength to put one foot in front of the other, the strength to believe that life is going to, or is a gift. And I think that that's what your loved ones continue to feed you through the universe, that it's all right. Things are going to be okay as long as you have the understanding that you're loved and you have, as like going through this difficult time right now in my life. I just feel that if I can put one foot in front of the other and have my family and have my friends and that love exists in my life, then I'm going to get through it.
Yes. Yes, you are.
Absolutely
Even in
perfect.
Florida?
Even if, as long as you don't put me in front of an alligator.
Well, me and Tom and Melissa will have to have a vote after this to decide whether to make you a permanent.
I can vote right now.
Oh, you're talking too much.
No, it's been great having you here.
It's been lovely, really is.
Great being here. Thank you.
We don't have a lot of time. We have like 2 minutes, but how long do your memories stay with you after you die?
After you die. As long as someone keeps talking about you and loving you, you exist. As far as what your memories are, I guess if those love bonds keep happening, you'll keep being refreshed. That's right. That person loves me and I love them.
All I can point to for that is that people go through past life regressions, and when they're put into some sort of hypnotic state, they can remember past lives. So those memories are still there. You got to figure all your memories are still there somewhere. I mean, there's the Akashic records we've heard about, that everything you've ever done is somewhere in a record of sorts.
Yeah. And then again, you have people like me. I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. So why should I assume that my memories are going to stay in the next life when I can't remember anything here? So we don't really know the answer to that. I mean, we know that people have come through in medium readings that have been deceased for decades, and they still come through with specific facts, which seems to indicate that memories are intact for quite a while. But I think that eventually it kind of wanes as we move further and further away from the physical.
I was going to just say that I don't think it really matters. My mother was very, very attached to her persona, who she was. She loved life. She loved everything about life. My father was a professor of philosophy, and he thought if you live the right life now, this other part won't matter. But my mother was so adamant about saying that, nope, she's going to remain Bertha Soderquist
Right.
throughout, all the ages. So I don't think it matters. I think, it might be one, it might be the other.
All right, we're going to end this with Claude Swanson's Global Peace Prayer. Let us as one consciousness give our energy of loving thought by praying like this: to love one another, to treat others as we would like to be treated, to forgive others and return love for hate, kindness for anger, and to spread this feeling to everyone, to our fellow man as well as the earth and its environment.
And I'd like to say our loved ones are only a heartbeat away.
And science is going to accept it.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.